3, 2, 1. Good evening and welcome to the workshop session of our board meeting, and I'm calling it to order and roll call. Ms. Tina.
Mr. Fayette. Here. Ms. Catulli. Here. Mr. Forehand.
Here.
Mrs. Hill. Here. Mrs. Davidson.
Here.
And do I have a motion to adopt the agenda for today?
Second.
Second.
Moved and second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Approved 5-0.
No, we didn't vote.
Oh, you didn't vote.
Faster if we don't vote.
Well, that's what my intent was.
Okay.
I'm sorry. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Okay, I have the honor now of moving into our district office Hero of the Heart. And do you want me to go over to there?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
Do you want to bring that paper?
Yes, I do, May. Thanks for taking care of me. Yes, could you all come up to the podium? What? It's our great honor on behalf of the Board of Education and our community to bestow upon you the Hero of the Heart to the Rossmoor Homeowners Association for extraordinary dedication and exceptional service to the students of the Los Alamitos Unified School District. And on behalf of the board and the entire district, we are delighted to announce that you have been chosen and honored as our District Hero of the Heart. This award recognizes the outstanding commitment, unwavering support, and invaluable partnership between Rossmoor Homeowners Association and our school district. We have been incredibly fortunate to witness the profound impact RHA's engagement and dedication to the educational well-being of our students and community. RHA's continuous support has played an integral role in assisting both our students and staff. For that, we are immensely grateful. Just to highlight some of the things that you have done that have made a huge difference for our kids, the senior parade, which we all love, it just gets better and better and better every year. Your scholarships, you've made a commitment to investing in the future of our students is wonderful. Staff appreciation, all those lunches that we got organized, and every school in Rossmoor staff, total staff, not just the teachers, the classified staff who make it run just as much as teachers do, enjoyed Nick's sandwiches. And just your community engagement, your collaboration with us is beyond the boundary of our schools. Your RHA's active involvement in community events and outreach community, fostering a sense of pride and unity for our community. Our long-standing partnership with RHA has made a lasting difference in the lives of our students, teachers, and administrators. RHA's commitment to education and the betterment of our community serves as an inspiration to all of us. This Hero of the Heart Award symbolizes our profound gratitude for the exceptional communications made by Rossmoor Homeowners Association. Congratulations. All right, now, I don't know if you know this, there's a plaque in the back. There is.
Yeah.
In that corner, and yeah, and you will be on that plaque forevermore. Okay. Awesome. So, but besides that,
Right.
besides that, the board has a tradition of, because we have no money, the board. I don't know if you didn't know that, but you get our highest honor, which is the awesome. You'll have to share this because we have no money. You got that? Okay. But we'll let Art wear it first. And you are number one, and it says you're awesome. So thank you. And would you like to say?
I'd like to just thank the school district and I think Chris said it perfectly when he said that the unity in the community is the key, and we just need to continue to push that forward. with all the schools throughout the district. And we appreciate your support and everything you do for our kids that go through those schools. And I have to really commend the district and Dr. Pulver for that 100% graduation rate. Awesome. Thank you very much.
You know, Chris, Papa Forehand, President Forehand alluded to, but I don't know if we really understand, I think we fully understand the impact of the senior parade. But if we think back 4 years ago when our graduates had very little ways to be able to celebrate during COVID with the guidance that was constantly changing. And when we surveyed our families, they really wanted us to wait on a promotion because they didn't want to have to do something. And RHA really created this thought and this vision and this dream to do a parade for our seniors to be able to recognize them. And this community just rallies behind its youth. I know I say that a lot because we're so fortunate. And to have RHA spearhead that and during one of the most difficult times in our modern history of the pandemic, and when that was really robbed from our students, and then to just see how it organically has become a new senior tradition, really a community tradition, and I think it's probably, as Nicole and I were talking, probably one of the most celebrated community events that we have, and that just came from the birth of RHA, and it's something that they continue to spearhead and organize. And as we know, this past year, it extended into an entire street fair with the partnership with RCSD. And so we just are so thankful for the ongoing support of RHA. They're just always, whenever I see them in the community, they bring so much love and light. I think back even during our hybrid year and other years when we were trying to do some of our visual art performances out in the center as well. I know RHA was helping with that, and Joe Shade, et cetera. And a big shout out to Joe Shade, who's also was part of that. So we just want to thank RHA for the ongoing relationships that you have. And I love that. I don't know if I've ever thought of that in that way when you said the unity within community. I think that's so true. And we know that so many of our families, at least in our schools, say that the reason they move to these neighborhoods is because of the schools, but it's also because of great quality neighborhoods and individuals. It's a wonderful place to raise your kids and to buy a home. So thank you very much, RHA.
No, the chair's ignoring Meg.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to add something. I love our school district, and I am prejudiced. And I think it is for sure a premier school district. It is probably one of the best, arguably, in the state of California and across the entire United States. But one of the things that you don't see published with data is the fact that we do have such incredible community support. The senior parade is such an example. You started it during COVID. It has expanded, and you take all students. You don't say, oh, do you only live in Rossmore? You don't even say, oh, do you only go to LaSalle? You'll take any child who lives in our basic general school district area, and they can go on the senior parade too. And like you said, what a unity in the community, and the love and the support that you guys give to all of the schools and the students and our teachers and the school sites. It's that ripple effect. You drop that goodness into the water and it just expands. And you're in a perfect example on the reason why LaSalle is as good as it is. So thank you so much.
Art, I think you've got our next T-shirt, Unity in the Community. So thank you very much for that. The parade, what I love is the amount of people I encounter after the parade and even before the parade in the community that are so looking forward to the parade or could not rave enough about their experiences coming out on their lawns, putting their chairs out there, cheering on the kids. And between that and then our seniors going back to their elementary schools, there's just a real reason for kids much younger than high school age to get very excited about being a Griffin. And so you guys cultivate that sense of community and that connection that as Meg said, is so valuable. It's just so unique and valuable and anomaly to all of us. So for all of us, thank you, all of you.
I really do love your always thinking about how you can support the schools. Your luncheons at the elementary schools, I've been there, we've had discussions. I know it comes from a deep place of care for our students, for our community, and you just do a really graceful job in it, and it comes from such a great place, and just really appreciative of those new traditions that you've brought to us, and keep up the good work. Thank you very much.
Could we take a picture in the center like we do for our other heroes? Because it'll go in our board highlight.
Yep, absolutely.
You want us to move? Sure, please.
Yeah, they look pretty snazzy.
Thank you, sir.
Really hot. Okay, we're now ready to move on to Proposition 28 update. Ms. Reed.
Perfect. Thank you so much, President Forehand and Board. Tonight, I'm going to walk you through an overview of Proposition 28. And so many of you may remember Proposition 28 earlier this year from the election ballot. Prop 28 begins next school year, the 23-24 school year, and it provides additional funding for arts education in public schools. So it requires that the state provides a funding increase to arts instruction and/or arts programs in public schools. And so really what that means is the amount required each year is going to be equal to 1% of the constitutionally required state and local funding that public schools receive each school year through Prop 98. So we're going to be getting 1% of that amount that's going to be designated for Prop 28 arts funding. And so this funding is considered a payment above the constitutionally required amount of Prop 98, and it's going to be given to public schools and community colleges PK through the JC level. And so this money really is specific, and it's designated into specific pots of money, which I think is important to understand because it requires funding to be used primarily to hire new staff. And so it's on an 80-19-1 model, which we're really referring to here as just really an 80-20. So 80% that needs to be spent on staff, 19% on supplies, materials, and partnerships, and 1% on administrative costs. But here in our district, we're really going to call it 20%. We're going to put that 1% because Ed Services, in partnership with principals, will help oversee the administrative costs. So we're going to lump that to a 20% back to our school sites for supplies, materials, and partnerships. And so the proposition does require that 80% is spent on hiring staff. The remaining funding can be used for training, supplies, materials, for arts education partnership programs, and the CDE may approve requests from schools to spend less on staff for a few years through a waiver program, but we're still waiting to hear hear about that. And so that could be in a unique situation where maybe here in our school district, if we were looking to start an elementary instrumental music program, which we have previously talked about, if you needed a larger amount maybe to buy instruments one year, that you could write in for a waiver to take more than your 20% to buy those startup instruments, and then not use some of that staff money for 1 year. So these are some of the things that have been talked about with Prop 28. And so what you'll learn as I go through my presentation is we were given a lot of information at the onset, and then the longer the time has gone through the school year, a lot of the information has become convoluted. And so education services have been working very tightly with business services because we're both really receiving two sets of information. At my county meetings, I get all the program aspects. And at Elvia's meeting, she gets the funding aspects. And what we're learning is those two really haven't collided at the right point to really operationalize this funding quite yet. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that tonight. And so I think it's important. Yes, Meg.
I just want to verify that this is new staff. It's not existing staff.
And we're going to get into that. There's some really specific language about supplement versus supplanting. And so benchmarking and some of the metrics that we're going to have to use to operationalize baseline data when it comes to arts programs and arts staffing and arts supplies purchases. And so I think it's really important. Let's step back just like one step and talk about some of the definitions under Prop 28 so that we understand what programs and staff we might be talking about. And so under Prop 28, they really include arts education programs to be training, supplies, materials, and arts education partnership programs for instruction in the following areas: dance, media arts, music, theater, visual arts, including folk art, painting, sculpture, photography, craft arts, creative expressions, which includes graphic arts and design, animation, music composition, script writing, costume design, film and video, and then computer coding. But I really want to be clear because there's some direct language. It's the computer coding necessary for like graphic design, website development. It's not the computer coding that you would think of when we're talking about some of our CTE pathways or like JavaScript writing to develop new apps and things like that. So it's all of the coding necessary for the arts display component of some of the e-commerce that we'll see some of our classes at the high school touch on, things like graphic design and or website design. When we talk about funding, you'll see that we're going to be talking about economically disadvantaged pupils, very similarly to how we look at unduplicated counts with LCFF. And so they're using the definition in Prop 28, which means a pupil who's eligible for the Federal National School Lunch Act or successor program. So really our free and reduced lunch count. And then when we talk about enrollment for the funds, we're really talking about every preschool, TK, and K-12 pupil enrolled in our school district. This would not include our preschool students in our CDC program or our paid-for program. This would include our special education preschool students and anyone who's in the state-funded preschool program. Those really are LoSal Unified School District students versus our paid-for child care program that runs through our CDC. Mrs. Hill. Yes, so TK is included in that. You got it. Mm-hmm. And so Prop 28 was written a little uniquely, and it really does designate the school principal at each site as someone who would determine how the dollars are spent. And so Proposition 28 requires the principal of a school site or the program director of a preschool to develop a plan for the spending and the funding they receive. The principal or program director would determine how to expend a site's arts instruction and or programs. So as we receive these dollars, they are going to be specific to school sites or age groups such as preschool. And the plan is written that a principal would oversee that. We have gotten further clarity from the county, and you are allowed as a unified school district to engage your teachers and principals in a larger committee and write a universal plan as well. Those universal plans would just have to be agreed to by our school principals, their staffs, and then we would host those universal plans on all of our school site websites as well as our district website. So that is an option. And from working with colleagues in the county, I'd say that's the direction almost every unified school district that I've been in talking with is how they're going to be handling this arts money, is really looking at it from the preschool all the way transitioning up to high school as one plan instead of separate plans that would be written at each level.
So by doing this, if you are looking at the kids who qualify under that act, is the money still dispersed equally over every campus, or does it lean more towards the schools with more of the kids in them?
It leans more towards schools with higher enrollment or more students qualifying for free and reduced lunch. And so we'll talk a little bit about those individual funding formulas as well. But as a school district, if our principals agree and the stakeholders on our arts committee, we can pool that together for the benefit of all. But as we go to spend things like materials and supplies, we will have to account it back to part of the 20% of money that each school site was given, so that we're spending it as intended equitably across those subpopulations. So Proposition 28 does require local governing boards to certify each year that the funding their schools received was spent on arts education. So local governing boards must post on their website a report about how the funds were spent. The report must include the types of arts education programs funded, the number of staff employed, the number of students served, and the number of school sites providing arts education with the funding received. And then this report will also be submitted to CDE and made public on the department's website. We have yet to receive any information about how they're going to collect the data, what the report will look like, a template for the plan. It's really the advice we've been given up until this point by school services and OCDE is really to kind of pump on the brakes. We did engage our stakeholder groups early. I met with all of our arts groups twice, and we did a survey. We met and talked about the money, the projected costs we thought we were going to get, and our staff did take a survey and said we all want to be in on a universal plan, because even at the high school level, we see how an arts education at the elementary level feeds our programs and really supports a broader vision for arts at that secondary level. We did decide to pause. When you're hearing information from OCDE and school services, and business services was hearing the same message on their end, we did pause and are looking forward, as I'll share later, to develop a larger plan next school year, because at this point, really the state and Orange County Department of Ed aren't sure how they're going to be getting us the money or when the money will exactly arrive for us to use. And it was supposed to be ready by July 1. So earlier this school year, we really thought we were going to be writing a plan that I would bring forward by June, so that beginning July 1, we would operationalize this. We met early in the year, January, February, because if it was going to involve hiring new staff, we wanted to be prepared for that and come out for recruitment and partnership with HR at the right time. But all of those have kind of been paused, as we're really not sure at this time. We've had two different projections of how much money we would receive as a school district, and it still wasn't accurate. The last time we received it, it still didn't account money for preschool. So we're unclear if the money we got K-12 then will be smaller, because some is going to be portioned out for preschool, or if indeed we'll be getting an additional percentage for our preschool population at this time. Diana.
Is there any chance that because we don't spend it in this year that we'll lose it?
We haven't even gotten it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm
going to get to that.
I'm just going to say that, a lot of times they tell us to spend money we don't get. So
Yeah.
I was just curious.
The way the bill is written, money rolls over for a 3-year time period. And so it is allotted to be spent in 3-year increments. So here's what we know. Proposition 28 provides annual funding for arts education programs. Preliminary estimates show that districts will receive approximately $112 per student, plus $85 per economically disadvantaged student, and that the allocated funds are available for use for up to 3 years, and that funding is anticipated to begin this coming July 1st, which I think is probably not coming July 1st, but sometime in the 23-24 school year. Funding is really allocated with an equity formula. So 70% of the funds you get derive from your PK-12 base enrollment, and 30% of the funds we're giving will derive from our share of Title I students enrolled at each of our school sites. So in some of the preliminary funding quotients that we got, you could see like LAE has a higher percentage of Title I students. They received more money per student for those students than some of our other school sites. So very similar to the allocation of LCFF, and that we're looking at some marginalized subgroups receiving more spending dollars. And so based on where they're enrolled in pockets across our district, those school sites will receive more money in comparison to a school site with less social economically disadvantaged, or a school site that's just less in numbers, right? Because 70% is going to be coming from your base enrollment number. We also know that 80% is required to be spent supplementing cost of district employees that provide arts education instruction. And so what this means is that 80% of the funds are restricted for certificated or classified employees that aren't currently in our baseline metric from 22-23. So it isn't like we could start funding 2 sections of choir using this money, because that would be supplanting our current program and we have to supplement it. So we could start spending money on 2 additional sections of choir if we increased the number of students in our choirs simultaneously at increasing the scope of our arts education program in vocal music. And so we have been working in Ed Services over the last couple months to start our own baseline metrics of enrollment and spending in all of our arts programs, K-12, so that we're ready to operationalize the plan when this information comes to us. We have had some questions from the field, which I'll talk to in a few slides, that also align with declining enrollment. I think a great example is some of our arts programs our recommendation for FTE is less because there's less students in them. And so it's based on a declining enrollment either in that program or at that school site. And so can we then supplant that employee to be, let's just say they're going to be 80% next year, that we'd like to pick up a section and make them 100%. The answer is at this point, no, but they're still getting some additional information from the field. If we can use data to show our numbers are lower, so that would have been our regular human resource response to decline in FTE, that it would still be considered then supplementing rather than supplanting. But at this time, we're told anything that we've spent in 22-23 and staffing metrics that we use for arts education will be used as the baseline, regardless of your ongoing enrollment fluctuations. That is something that could definitely change. That was a concern from many districts at the roundtable when we're talking about Prop 28 spending. And then 20% of the money can be spent on arts education support, including training, supplies, materials, and arts educational partnership programs. And then this was the information they shared with us. They said, upon written requests from the principal of a school site, CDE can look at a good cause shown and provide a waiver for the above funding requirements. CDE has yet to clarify what the formal process for the waiver submission will be or who would review it, but it's just something that we're still taking into consideration as we look to build our plan next year. We were going to start something robust and we needed additional funding to support the startup of that. Hopefully by that time, should we need it, there'd be a waiver process in place that we may be able to tap into for startup of some of the arts programs at our elementary level. We also know that when we talk about supplementing versus supplanting, that the funds need to increase current arts education spending and not replace current expenditures. So that will include what we've previously spent on materials and supplies inside our arts programs, K-12 as well. And so supplement means that schools and districts shall use funds appropriated to increase funding of arts education programs and not supplant existing funding. And then some of the reporting requirements, each school site principal or program director must develop an expenditure plan, so that will go along with the 80-20 model. And then local education agencies must submit an annual board-approved report detailing how they spent the funds and certify that they were used per the requirements in Prop 28. So as we get that information, obviously I'd be coming forth to the board, bringing those plans and then certifying them annually and disclosing our expenditures, FTEs, and number of students who are receiving an arts education K-12. Some of the questions from the field: what funds are considered the baseline to supplement or supplant requirements? To be determined. Create California was a big lobbyist in Prop 28, so they seem to be kind of on the forefront of getting information and garnering it from the state. And so it's Create California's current understanding that all annual and one-time governmental funds spent on arts education in 22-23 will qualify as baseline. If it's a yearly allocation and the funds roll over for 3 years, does that mean schools continue to receive funding each year, even if they haven't spent last year's allocation? Going back to Mrs. Hill's question, yes. So you can encumber certain funds, and it should be written into our plan if we plan to encumber funds, maybe for a large purchase or something that would be more than we had in our 20% on one school year. We could encumber that over up to 3 years for larger purchases. If schools use parent booster or PTA money to pay for arts educators, who are district employees, does this create a possible problem for schools? So the current interpretation of the baseline is still to be determined, but again, the proposition is intended to supplement existing funding and programming. So OCDE has shared with us, they believe that if we have current positions paid for by booster or PTA monies, those will be considered part of our baseline dollars. So that, it's a little painful, right? That's a little painful for us. Can Proposition 28 funds be used for nonprofit arts providers, especially if insufficient funds exist to hire a district arts education teacher? CDE, the California Department of Education, may provide a waiver for the 80% funding requirement. Without a waiver, up to 20% of funds are available for various arts education supports, including training, supplies, materials, and contracts with nonprofit art providers. So under the current language, this would exclude us from using a nonprofit partner with any of the 80% funds. A nonprofit partner would be coming out of our 20% for materials, training, and supplies. So the 80% is really geared at us hiring classified and certificated district employees that do this work as part of our instructional or outside of our instructional school day. We did get some of that clarification, but that they're district employees. So we've been having some internal dialogue on our arts committee, potentially that we may need to partner with human resources and write some additional job postings, classifications that we would need to work on so that we're prepared to encumber additional potentially classified employees as well that would be able to support us in some of these arts areas. So next steps for us, June 2023. So right now, after meeting for a third time with our staff, I do plan to write a template of my choosing. OCDE says put something on paper. That can be your plan. That would allow our sites to at least access their 20% for supplies and materials. So as many as you know, many of our arts programs, it's expensive to run them. And we are so fortunate at the 6-12 level that we have robust parent groups that really do support and provide part of what our exemplary arts education programs for our kids. But we really do think that it's important that teachers have access to some of the resources and materials that Prop 28 is providing for them. And so I plan to write a phase 1 of the plan to bring forward to the board where we would outline the disbursement of the 20% while we're still waiting on the state to figure out that 80% so that our kids for the 23-24 school year, that's what this money was intended for, and our staff can benefit at least from putting in some material, supplies, and training requests with that 20%. So I'm hopeful to bring that forward for the board's consideration at our next June meeting. And then during the 23-24 school year, we really would engage to write a larger, robust TK-12 arts plan, hopefully getting real-time information about the 80% in terms of hiring, and that we would pool together those resources as a district to look at a pooled staffing support plan, TK-12, 20% given to admin to use for site programs that we'll bring forward to your next meeting. And then this would really be facilitated by education services, but obviously with the support and feedback of our school site principals and our arts teachers district-wide. Some of the unknowns right now are the exact dollars, when the money will arrive, what the reporting mechanism will be, and then really clarity on hiring from some of the questions from the field that we've been dealing with and working with OCDE. But I definitely wanted to provide an update, at least share with you the information we've been sharing with staff in case you guys get questions. I know this is also something many of our parents who are supporters of the arts have been asking questions about because they voted on it in November and they want to really know what's happening. And so I'd love to answer any additional questions that you have this evening.
So it's curious to me, and maybe it's my ignorance, but so the bill goes through, but all of these details are not outlined within that.
So there are a lot of details outlined in the bill, and then they're operationalized by the California Department of Ed.
Okay.
And so I think one of the big holdups, and Elvia chime in if I know that business services also receives some information, is that the state has never really given money directly to a school site, because remember, they've allocated these funds to a school site instead of a pool of money given to a district that's typically done as a pass-through to OCDE. So what's been shared with in the meetings I attend is that there's this disconnect about how this money is really going to get managed and then dispersed to school sites and what reporting mechanism each of the levels will be used.
That is absolutely correct. Another area is because it's based on the minimum guarantee Prop 98, we don't know what that number is going to end up being by the end of 22-23. So having that dollar amount is still unknown. And of course, interpretations of the statute is also extremely vague.
And I think it's just important to remember, this was a ballot proposition. So this wasn't authored by the Senate or the legislature. Austin Butner and a few others were really the spearheads behind writing this ballot initiative. And what we've heard as our superintendent's meetings, it's through Access, CSBA, et cetera, is that they do think that there's been a lot of advocacy to get clarity on, and maybe it might come in the trailer bills with the budget, but they're also not exactly sure how they can get clarity on some of this because it wasn't initiated through the legislature. It was a ballot initiative. And so where do they have the flexibility to provide that greater clarity? And that's why everyone keeps saying, as you heard Mrs. Reed share, maybe pause until we get more clarity on a few of these situations.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
We have no cards, so we'll be moving into closed session. Conference with district labor negotiator, public employee discipline, and student discipline. We will reconvene at 6 p.m.